Welcome to Medieval Mason. In today's video, I will be building this fantasy tree from the Everdell board game. Recently, a friend of the channel requested that I build the tree from the board game Everdell. To accomplish this, I first consulted the game's cardboard tree to gauge the scale and general feel. Since Everdell is set in a magical, Redwall-inspired universe, I wanted to capture a twisted, fantasy-style oak that also had a large hollow that could hold the game's deck of cards. The first step was to sketch out a top and side view of my vision on a piece of paper. These blueprints were then converted into a quick foil and twig practice model. After deciding on a few changes, I started work on my final product. The core of the tree was constructed from a slanted piece of 1-inch PVC pipe. This was then wrapped with tinfoil to create the tree's bulk and roots. Once the base of the tree was assembled, I moved on to covering the piece with an outside layer. Since the model was going to be part of a board game, I wanted the skin to be made from a sturdy material that could be handled without fear of deformation. To accomplish this, I decided to cover the tree with thermoplastic. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this product, thermoplastic comes in small pellets that, once put in boiling water, assume the consistency of silly putty. After it cools, however, the plastic becomes rock hard. I've placed a link to the brand that I use in the description below. To give the trunk texture, I first reheated the thermoplastic with a heat gun. I then took a piece of bark and pressed in a pattern against the soft plastic. I then spray painted the tree black and repeated the process on areas that had been missed. For the platforms, I wanted to use coffee mixers to simulate miniature planks that could be affixed over top sturdy plywood bases. For these, I cut a half stencil out of paper, which was then used to trace an outline on plywood. Once cut out, 2 of these would be attached and covered with coffee mixers to complete the platform. For the branches of the tree, I picked up some plastic twigs from the clearance section of Michael's. Once I had both platforms finished, I used the dowel peg method to secure the structures to the trunk. A similar process was later done for the top platform. To add additional support, I secured the branches underneath the platforms to the deck with a small quantity of thermoplastic. This was then smoothed out and carved with an electric X-Acto blade. Additionally, superglue and accelerant were used for the smaller branches. To secure the branches to the tree, I first drilled small holes in the base of each branch and inserted a wooden dowel. I then drilled slots into the trunk and glued the pegged branches into place. Next, the entire model was airbrushed with a medium brown. After the paint had had a chance to dry, I went over the entire model with a heavy dry brushing of tan. Next, I covered the model with a thin black wash. Following the wash, I highlighted several portions with a vivid green to simulate moss. Lastly, I painted the top platform with orange, green, and yellow paints before sealing the piece with a clear matte varnish. To make the leaves, I wanted to achieve a mid-springtime look on the branches. To accomplish this, I took some miniature ferns from the clearance section at Michael's and cut off the tips to double for budding leaves. These were then dipped in superglue, followed by superglue accelerant, before being quickly attached to the branches. To ensure the tree did not damage the game's board, I glued a sheet of black felt to the base and trimmed it with an X-Acto knife. The final part of the build was to create the turn markers represented by 3 banners lining the top platform. To ensure these matched the original game, I traced the icons, creating vector graphics which were then extruded in 3D space and printed on a filament printer. If you'd like a copy of these files, I've placed a link in the description below. Finally, I used an airbrush to apply a solid layer of acrylic ink to each banner before highlighting the detail in white and affixing the banners to the platform with some superglue and accelerant.